Alright, hi there. I just want to compare the skinning feature in 3dsmax to Blender's armature thing, where you armature your mesh to an armature. I guess that's what they say. Terminology is all over the board, especially with Blender, but when we're talking about skinning, we're really just talking about binding the geometry to a skeleton, and that process of correcting the way it's bound to the skeleton is what we call weighting. Some people call it rigging. Rigging is basically coming up with a rig, which is a special skeleton which has constraints. And then when you apply your mesh to that rig, they typically say, I'm rigging the mesh, which is probably valid. But really what you're doing is you're setting each vertex, or you're weighting the vertex to each bone in that rig, I guess. So you can call it rigging or skinning or weighting, whatever. The terminology is, again, kind of fluid. Okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to create a really quick bone system here for this pair of pants here. So we can create bones for our leg. Actually, I won't create too many. Let's just create this in there. I'll end it there. I'll just create a pelvis. Alright. So just create some basic bones. Okay. You don't have to use bones. You can use anything, actually. 3ds Max has another type, which is called a biped, which is a pre-made skeleton for you. And these objects are not bones. They're what they call a biped object. Okay, where these that we've created are bones. So you don't have to use a bone, but I typically use bones for my characters. Okay, so that's the wrong modifier. We want to add a skin modifier. Okay, and the first thing you want to do is just scroll down the bottom and then hit add and then select your bones. Okay, and that is enough to skin your mesh. You're done. So now we're just going to set the keyframe to pass 0. We're just going to put this into auto, and now we can apply a pose to our skeleton to kind of just mimic some animation here. Okay, so I'm just going to change the bones around, and we'll just move this up a little bit. Where's this? Grab it. Just put that aside. Okay. So here we've rigged our mesh to the skeleton now, but we have a bunch of weighting errors. So basically we see a bunch of spikes and stuff, and the lags aren't well defined, and this is something that we would need to fix, or we need to correct the weights. So in the skin modifier, you would go into edit envelopes, and this is referring to these little lines. So these lines are the envelopes, basically showing how the mesh is affected, or the mesh's affinity to that particular bone. So you can see this area around here. It's hard to see. It's like this little circle. This is the envelope. By increasing the size or decreasing the size of the envelope, it will decrease the affinity or increase the affinity of the bone to the mesh, or the mesh to the bone, sorry. So you're really just editing these envelopes to correct that. Okay. Now that does not give you the most control sometimes, so you can go into vertex mode, and now you can set these per vertex. So that gives you more control. So I can come in here and actually select the vertices and assign them a given value, like 1, and it will assign them. So let's talk about influences and how they're represented in terms of value. So influence means a pull or a force on the mesh to the bone. So when the bone moves, the mesh will move with it. We're talking about weight values. 1 represents 100% pull or 100% influence, and 0 represents none. A 0.5 is usually shared between 2 points or 2 bones. So when you say it's a 0.5, it's shared between 2 points. So it could be a pelvis bone and a leg bone, so you have 50% to the pelvis and 50% to the leg bone. Okay, so you have these little buttons up here in this little toolbox here that allow you to set manual values. So I can select an area and I can select 0.5, 0.1, and it will change that affinity. If I want more fine-grained control, I can type in or key in a manual value here and then set that. But mostly you just go with the quick icons. If you want to scale that, they have scalar values. Again, you can use a keyed-in value, or you can just use these quick buttons to just do it in increments. You have things like copy, so I can click on a vertex and say, I like this one. I can copy it, select another area, and then paste it on top of it. I can also average a selection of vertices, so I can select an area, and I can average them. You can't really see that, so let me change the angle here. As you can see here, I can average the selection, and it will try to blend them together. And then you have also selection modes. So if I select like an area here, and I'm having a hard time selecting up here, I can use the grow operation to grow the selection, or I can use shrink to decrease the selection, or ring and loop. Because this is a triangulated mesh, it doesn't have quads, the ring and loop won't work on this mesh, but if you had a quad mesh, it would work on those. Also with selections, you can also save selections. So let's say I like the selection that I made, and I think, hey, I might use that again. I can save this. I can say, you know, leg, right calf or something. Save that for later, and if I need to make the selection again, I just come down here and I select it. Okay. Okay, so let's actually go through here, and what I would actually do is I would click on the top bone, assign everything to 1, and then I would come down the hierarchy and just start to select things. Let's grow up here on the leg. Okay, I had the thigh selected here, hit 1, and then I'm going to come down here, select this one, and then I can deselect this area here, and then now I can do that on the calf. So it's very simple. Now I have a transition between the calf. I'm going to enter wireframe mode to show this better. That's a little bit, I guess, rigid, and I can select this area and then average that to kind of give myself a better blend. And so to select between the different bones, I can go in the box and then just pick them that way, and it makes it quicker as well. Okay, so this as well over here, it needs to have its transition fixed a little bit. So I would set a manual value and then come in here and then average it until I got a better result. So maybe I need to increase this area. So again, blend it and maybe use the scale factor and then just increase it up. So that's how these would work for that system. But this is very selection based. You don't have to use it this way. You can use the painting tools. However, I find that the painting tools don't work as well as just doing a selection. You're constantly clicking over and over again in the same area to kind of get the desired weight value. I find that just more frustrating to work with. Okay. Okay, so that's the weighting. Now this side, if you recall, I set the weights, but on this side I have not. Okay, so to save time, it would be awesome if I could just copy the right leg to the left leg to save on time. We can do that. That is called the mirror. So if we go into mirror mode, I can select this leg. So if I had a previous selection, which I just have the calf selected, so we'll just grow out the selection here. I can go into mirror mode and I can paste them. Now right now I can't paste because I can see that the leg is with a red envelope, and this is because when I first created the bones, I just created them however I wanted. They're not 100% symmetrical. Because of this, I have to increase the tolerance until these turn green and blue, and now I can do the paste, and now I'll paste to the side. Okay, which is great. Now I think in Blender the bones have to be absolutely 100% symmetrical and have some convoluted system associated with that for this to work. So that's an important thing to think about, how simple it is just to do this. And I'll talk about later in the second video when I talk about Blender, that problem that Blender has while trying to do the same kind of thing. Alright, and then that's pretty much it for inside the modifier. There are a ton of other options. Something just worth mentioning, I can save the vertices to an external file and then load them separately. I can change some of the vertices or the weights to kind of manage them. So for example, I can decrease how many weights are on per vertex if I'm exporting this to a game engine or something. So that's important. There's a bunch of other options in here, but I'm not going to go over them. Alright, let's talk about the modifier itself and what we can do with that. Let's say, for example, I want to attach some geometry. So let's create a sphere here. And let's say this is some accessory or something. We can go below here and we can attach it, okay? Or I can take the modifier itself and just cut it off, and I can just attach it here, do other operations to the mesh, change the UVs, whatever. Then I can come back in here, paste this back on, and then now the animation still is fine. Okay, that's one thing you can do. We can also transfer weights. So let's create a teapot here. So let's say we don't want to attach the geometry like I just did there with the sphere, but we would just want to copy the weights from this mesh to another one. Basically, I'll just apply a skin wrap to this object here. and then attach it to another object, in this case the pants. And now I can move my slider, and I can see that the pot is now affected by the bones that, or the weights that were copied from the pants. And here you can see there's a weighting error. I have the ability to change the projection mode, and just by toggling this, I might be able to get a better result. In this case, I don't think I'm going to get a better result. It's pretty much as good as it's going to get. So you get as best you can, and you convert it to skin. And then now you can go in there and get your per vertex control and do the corrections, okay? The important part is that it copies it from a base mesh, okay? Then converts it into a normal skin. So you can start to work like normal. Okay, so that's 3dsmax and the weight system. In my opinion, those really basic things, just being able to mirror weights and transfer them. Then just having the essential things about selecting vertices and saving your selections. In the next video, I'll be covering about what we can do in Blender and what that offers to us. Alright, thanks for watching.